All right, I call to order this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Cindy, will you do roll call?
Terry? Chris?
Here.
Mike?
Here?
Jim?
Here.
Cindy is here. Rochelle?
Here.
Carol?
Here.
All right. So now I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes from our April 14th meeting.
Chris.
So move.
Second.
Cindy, roll call?
Chris?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Cindy, yes. Rochelle?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
The motion is passed. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda and minutes for the April 28th meeting, our last meeting.
April.
April 28th?
Okay.
We didn't have a quorum
A
for that
motion to
meeting, so we
approve?
need to approve the agenda along with the minutes.
Approve the meeting minutes of that, even though you didn't have a quorum, is that what you're saying?
The agenda, since we didn't have a quorum, and then the minutes we would normally approve during this meeting.
Okay. So move.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I second.
Cindy, do roll call?
Chris?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jim?
I'll pass since I wasn't here.
Cindy, yes. Rochelle?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
All right, I will also entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting.
I move that we approve the agenda for this meeting.
Do we have a second?
Go ahead.
Carol? Cindy, roll call?
Chris?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Yes for me. Rochelle?
Yes.
And Carol?
Yes.
All right, so the discussion of the historic preservation plan. We had this scope of work that Lisa put together for us. And we need to form a subcommittee.
You can do it by one committee to go through all aspects of it, or if you wanted to do a committee or subcommittee for certain sections of it, it's up to you. Yeah, it really is how you want to divide and conquer tackling this plan.
I'd suggest to get started, that we have a committee that looks at the overall scope of the project, and then it may get broken down over time to smaller.
Jim, can you turn on your mic?
Oh,
Yep.
Just push that button right there.
push. Ah, the green light's on. I'd suggest that we have a committee look at the overall scope of work and outline it. And then down the road, we may want to break that up into further smaller bite-sized pieces. But to get started, I think we need to look at the overall approach.
That makes sense to me. Are you interested in chairing that committee?
I'd certainly be willing to help. I'm pretty well tied up until after June 5th, when we have a presentation for the Friends of the Museum that I'm underwater on right now. But,
Well, I'd like to know that June 5th is next week.
Yeah, it's
Okay. I
coming
wasn't
down
gonna
the
let you off
track.
that easy, Jim.
So I think it would be possible to have something together for our next meeting, you know, a rough outline. I've got some thoughts on what's been laid out. I think it's a good approach. Incidentally, I like the Glenwood Springs example. It kind of lays out all of the steps we need, you know, that need to be taken. So as a template, I think it has some merit in kind of outlining the overall approach, as well as then making substantive contributions to various aspects of the plan. The thing I didn't find when I looked on their website was, you know, what had happened. You know, they laid out some action steps and responsibilities, but there didn't seem to be any time fuse on it. And it was hard to tell exactly how that related to where they're at today. So but I do think it's could help us with a template. To Carol's point, I don't think we want a consultant-driven plan. I don't know that we need to hire, you know, or envision initially at least, hiring a historic preservation consultant or a planning consultant to lead the project. I think, you know, that we're capable of at least getting it off the ground, and then we may define specific pieces that require more time or expertise than we have available. But I think, you know, to start, it can be, you know, just us. So that would be some thoughts on it anyway.
Do you think it'd be good to, I guess, form this committee and meet? When is our next meeting?
Next meeting would be June
June
23rd.
23rd,
June 23rd?
it's on the bottom of your agenda.
I think it'd be nice to form this committee and meet prior to that
Yeah,
in kind of more of a round table kind of meeting to where we can discuss it. And I'd be happy to be part of that committee as well.
I think the more people that can be on that initial committee, the better it's going to be, because I think we need everybody's kind of input and voices about the whole plan, because we're going to be involved from the beginning to the end. So I feel like the roundtable is a great idea, and as many people that can just be there for that input is great. And then if you want to narrow it down to more specific people who might be more interested in that particular piece of it. But I just feel like we need everybody's voices. Just a thought.
that's a great idea.
If all of the commission wants to be a part of that committee, we could do another special meeting prior to this. And we can invite the public in again if you want and do a more public meeting. Especially if all of you are interested in serving on that committee initially.
I think that's a good idea. That way we are
Okay.
all in on the bottom line of where we're going from here.
Or we could, do you want to do a more formal discussion of the scope of work at a special meeting? Just focus solely on the scope of work for the historic preservation plan. That's it.
Do we need to have
We
it
can
in
do
a
that.
special meeting format? Can we have it like an informal meeting around, or do we need to do it like this?
That's a good question. I think with that, I don't think so, but I will have to double check.
And it doesn't have to
we
be a
could-
closed
yeah.
meeting, but I just think that if we
Or
were
you can
sitting
all,
at a desk
yeah,
around,
yep.
and, you know, and
Yep,
and
we
being
could
able
probably
to
do that
discuss it
fairly
might-
easily.
It'd be more productive,
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yep, we could probably do that on the other side of the room.
Okay. Do we advertise it as a meeting? Do we advertise it as a, do we even need to advertise it, I guess?
I don't believe so. We
It's a
might have
committee.
to, though, yeah. Because it's more than, it's all of you, the majority of you. So we might end up having to advertise it as a public meeting.
And I think that's fine. I think I would prefer to do it over there, I think, where we're just kind of at a round table and
Yep, okay.
can discuss it.
And we can invite the public
Sure.
too.
I think
Yep.
we should.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was there a special day, special meeting that would work out the best?
2 weeks from now,
2 weeks.
does that look good? What we would be
Make
at
sure.
here?
Make sure that we
It's
can get
9th or
the
the
room
16th, so
available.
the next meeting's the 23rd, correct?
Mhm.
9th works for me.
So, yeah, that would be the 16th. Is 4 PM a good time for everybody?
I was talking the 9th.
I'm sorry?
The 9th?
Oh, the 9th.
Yeah, that would give us 2 weeks before the next meeting, 2 weeks from now and 2 weeks from there.
The 9th would be good.
Works for me.
I can do the 9th.
I'll check to see if the room is available
Okay.
at the same time, 4 o'clock. Okay.
Is there another room, should that be booked, that we could meet in?
Upstairs?
Possibly, but not with the connection with the owl.
Oh, the Zoom meet, we wouldn't be
Yeah,
able to
the
do it
Zoom.
that way?
We could probably do it Zoom, yeah, different way. PM, June.
Could we do it at the museum if it's booked? Would that be a problem?
Making it public would be a little difficult. We don't have the owl.
Oh,
Um,
okay, I see what you're saying.
But I think we might
For
be,
online.
we probably make that work. We'll
Either way,
see.
but
Yep,
I think the 9th works for me.
Could probably get one there
yeah,
for a meeting.
yep.
Kind of related to that, it would be good to know, and I think Lisa was going to check where we're at with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, so I just got it yesterday, a draft of all the action points that were specifically relating to historic preservation yesterday. And I think we have until Friday to, yeah,
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Friday with comments. I can tell you what it has on it relating to historic preservation. Basically providing practical measures for property owners to maintain their historic buildings, expanding the landscape of Canyon City's preserved landmarks, relying on local knowledge and insight to inform decision-making, and collaborating regionally on common preservation and heritage goals. Specifically, the Fremont County Heritage Commission and the Fremont County Historical Society were mentioned as being partners, possible partners for that. Using local regulations to protect assets from destruction or insensitive rehabilitation. The action points included continue the facade improvement grant program, continue the downtown life safety grant program, develop guidelines for preserving and rehabilitating historic structures, provide general design and technical recommendations to assist historic property owners, identify areas for new historic districts, inform property owners of the importance of historic preservation, advertise the Fremont County Heritage Tours for the downtown, and review the Municipal Code Chapter 1230 to ensure up-to-date and relevant historic preservation controls. A lot of these we'll probably be covering in our own historic preservation plan and be more specific, especially in regards to identifying areas for historic districts and for providing information to property owners. That's the education. And of course, the promotion and marketing techniques and strategies that are listed in the scope of work will go into more depth in our own plan.
Lisa, to clarify, this was can you describe what you were just listing a plan for?
So this was for the comprehensive plan for the city of Canyon City.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I'm just focusing, I just mentioned the stuff that related to historic preservation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And the deadline you have to submit
Friday.
this is Friday?
Friday.
That's
you-
specific to, that's,
I
you're
think
talking about
it's-
the entire plan, right?
Yeah, for the entire plan.
Yeah,
So-
it's out for staff review. It's a 100-page, 11 by
Document.
17 document. They've gone through it with city council, joint sessions between city council and the planning commission. They've gone through the entire document, but now it's in our hands for final comment, I guess you could say. So it is scheduled to be completed between June and July. So it's been going on for about a year so far, a little less than that. It's pretty extensive document. It really is. It's not what you might want to call a plan of action, I guess you could say. It's more of a guidance, a guiding document for how the city would develop through the next 10, 20 years. So there will be room for some flex, I guess you could say, in development. It's not a concrete document, so to speak. It's a working document. But, yeah, comments are due by, I think, at the end of the week.
Yes,
Pretty sure, yeah.
Friday.
And is it available online?
It was.
It might be through picturecanyonCity2040.com.
I looked earlier and I didn't find it available. Some of the links were taken down.
Yeah, some of them were taken down. We may have to get that to you. Well, let's check to see if it's on that website somewhere, because there's some, I did succeed at finding something on there. I just wasn't sure how I got there, because you're right, a lot of those links are down. A lot of the public comment types of links are down.
I assume that perhaps after staff review, it'll be available for final review by the public?
It will go to the city council for public meetings and public approval.
But by then, it's pretty well set, I assume.
Yeah, they could make some changes, but they could make some changes later on, but, you know, the whole idea behind the creation of it was to try to get as close as they possibly could to something that's gonna be accepted. And then it'll go to public. The meetings that they've had with Joint Planning Commission and City Council meetings have all been public meetings. So people have been able to participate in those if they really needed to or wanted to.
Okay, so our plan for the historic preservation plan is we are putting together a special meeting. We're shooting for for June 9th, as long as we can find, or as long as the room is available.
Yep.
And there we will discuss forming the committees or subcommittees. You had mentioned we have someone from the public that wants to possibly serve on one of those committees?
Yeah, there's somebody sitting in the audience that was interested in possibly serving on the subcommittee
Okay, yeah. We
for this plan.
definitely welcome the help.
Yep.
Welcome.
Does that date work for you? Okay. We should probably get her
Yep.
contact
Well,
information
yes,
and keep
yep.
her in the loop if that date changes for whatever reason.
Yep. And that will probably, since it's, we're opening up to the public, then that will be put on the city's website.
Okay. All right. Review of the certificate of appropriateness application.
So I sent out a rough draft of the certificate of appropriateness application. It's one of the items that the commission is responsible for reviewing as per the city's ordinance establishing the Historic Preservation Commission, is to review any applicants that are received from an owner who is planning on doing alterations to their historic property. So we're making sure that they are following certain guidelines. They're not planning on doing major alterations that would possibly make that structure no longer historical significant to this area.
Would that be for all historic properties on any registry or just?
Yes, it would be any property that's listed locally, state, or on the National Registry. And that would also include any building that is a contributing to a historic district. And I've tried to sort of consolidate different application forms from other areas, try to keep it as simple as possible. And this would be something that an owner would submit prior to getting a building permit.
Is that how we would be notified, is when they apply for a building permit, or would they?
We would probably put this application on the building department's webpage, so they know. We'll also make sure that it's on our website. And we'll also, I'm working with the building department to create a database or improve their database of already properties in this town and having it flag if there is a property that is historic on a national, state, or local. Currently, the database that they have doesn't have that little designation or flag letting them know that that is a historic property. So we're working with them to get that updated. So it'll be caught in a couple different areas possibly.
So would we as a group review those?
Yep, you would be reviewing them similar to a nomination form, so we would also have to do a public notice and published in the paper on the property itself, so it'd follow the same procedure.
So my concern would be, do we know enough about the state and national requirements to even give them any feedback?
We would have to make sure that you did.
Okay.
And guidelines, yep.
Because I'm thinking that's going to be fairly
Yeah.
extensive.
And there are a number of resources that you can access, looking at what the state guidelines are, the national guidelines are as well,
Okay.
for those properties.
A
What's
good
allowed in
place to-
terms of alterations, yeah, appropriateness, materials, that type of thing.
Yeah, a good place to start is the Secretary of the Interior Standards
Yes.
for Rehabilitation. It's
You'll
kinda
have
like
to send that one to me.
the gold standard for restoration work.
Okay. So I
Can you
think
say
you're
that
our
again,
expert
Mike?
on that end.
Secretary of Interior.
Yeah, the Secretary of Interior's
Okay.
standards for rehabilitation. And I think I've sent that out, a link to that a while ago. I can send it out again,
Would you please?
yes.
Lisa, do you know if there's any like online training? Is there like a course or is there like a?
You can probably access a lot of this information through the CLG portal.
Okay,
Yep. They should have some pre-recorded webinars in regards to this.
okay.
Question.
Yeah.
Does this apply to only the properties that we designate as a Canyon City Commission? Or does this apply to the state historic district or the national historic district?
So it applies to any property that has been designated as local historic property, state, or national, and/or a contributing structure to a historic district.
Okay, so does the state have a state form? Because that would be, to me, appropriate. If they have designated, then they should have a form like this.
So for, you mean state?
Appropriateness.
Appropriateness?
Mhm.
I don't believe so, but I will look. I know a lot of communities do have a form. That's
Okay.
why I sent out a couple different examples to you.
Right?
I think Longmont, there was another one, I think from Pueblo possibly.
Yeah.
So we don't override national or state in our review. For instance, if somebody's
No.
doing some modifications to a nationally registered building, they still have to go through the national,
Well, that was just for the designation.
right.
If they follow the Department of Interior's, and that's pretty much what's in the application for getting it nominated, would be to follow those department standards.
So that building
for
already should
rehabilitation.
have that, but let's say they've gone through 5 owners since then and or
Yeah.
something like that. Where does it fall back onto
It falls back onto the commission,
this commission?
onto that commission.
Okay.
Yep.
And so whatever we decide, it needs to follow those standards, but should they not follow those standards, what repercussions are there?
They would-
I guess I don't want to make it too
Yes.
difficult, but on the same token, we need to keep it
So they could possibly get delisted.
delisted, so that's on them. If
Yep,
they want
it
to
would
keep
be on
this
them.
designation, then you need to be aware of this and do your due
Yes.
diligence and.
It would be of benefit to not only them, but to the community. And there are, in terms of helping them follow those guidelines, would be possible grants
Okay.
and assistance, and possibly loans too, that they could apply for by following those standards.
Okay.
Yeah, I think our goal is to not really limit what people can do with their properties, but,
To-
encourage them.
Or make them aware if they're going to apply for
Right.
something, you
Yes.
better follow the rules, or you risk losing that.
Right,
I
exactly.
think just making it aware.
To
goes a
that
long
point,
ways.
could we include something in the application related to consultation? That if a building owner or a developer is working on a building and they encounter a technical issue that they're not certain about, like using mechanical means to remove paint from a historical structure, and they're thinking about using a grinder, could we have an opportunity to consult?
So that would probably be part of when we get an application submitted to us. It'd be a staff report, and at that time, the commission can decide and encourage them to follow the procedures or what's acceptable for, you might want to do consulting them at that time during the review process of that application.
But the last thing you want to do is impede a job, and sometime you don't know they're going to take a grinder to the face of the building until the guy's standing up there grinding away.
Well, and this is before they even submit a building permit.
The permit.
So
Yeah.
we let them know ahead of time what to look for. And when they get a contractor, they'll be aware of what types of procedures would be more acceptable versus
If
not.
they
Yep.
want to maintain the designation, that's on them to make sure they follow those rules. Because it'd be hard for us to go through every single
Yeah.
thing they may encounter. So, and I'm with you, Jim, we don't want to discourage somebody from doing something, but also make
Exactly.
them very aware that they're going to possibly lose funding or possibly lose that designation should they not follow those rules.
If
Exactly.
they are applying for a grant for funds to do this work, part of that process, you have to
Oh, yeah.
detail and explain what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you chose to do it that way versus any other possible options too. So I guess it would be, if someone just had the funds and decided to go crazy and
Do whatever.
do whatever, and that may be hard to stop, but.
Okay.
But most of us would not know that that was not the procedure to use to take that particular finish off of that rock. And so that might be a problem.
Well, I think we're safe for people who are applying for grants because they'll have to go through the process. There's going to be others that are coming in and just purchasing a building that has that designation without the knowledge or the funds. I'm thinking is probably going to be their biggest challenge, but
And that comes through with education, educating the public about what can be done, what's,
because I don't want to discourage them from doing things
Exactly.
with old buildings too, because that's where you lose them.
So how are you defining contributing structure? How is that defined?
so that's contributing to a historic downtown. That would be already a part of the application for the historic, for example, the downtown historic district. There is criteria already established of what building is non-contributing to the historic
Oh,
district
okay. All
versus
right, all right.
contributing. So that's already established
All right, yeah.
for that district. If we.
That makes sense.
Yes, yep.
All right. I
So
just
it's
saw a potential
contributing,
gap.
yeah, huh?
I just saw a potential gap. If it's a building that's not designated, but it's considered a contributing structure, how are we going to flag it? But if
It's
it's
only
already,
if
as it,
it's-
then,
yeah.
okay, then that makes sense.
So a contributing building would be flagged if someone applied for a permit?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's contributing to the historic district, yes.
So I guess what's our next step with?
Is
certificate
there
of appropriateness.
anything that you see on the application that you think should be included, or changed, altered in any way? And then we would have the commission approve this application form.
I think it looks pretty good. It's simple, and of course, the main thing we need to do going forward is educate ourselves on how to judge what is sent to us.
I guess I'd recommend coming up with some way to make that a consistent understanding as a group. I just see a slippery slope if somebody's coming to the commission with a desire to work on their property, I would hate to be in a position to make a recommendation that's inaccurate or I guess I struggle to some extent with that, with advising. It's almost like we would need to have contractors who understand historic preservation work with the owner instead of putting the commission into a position like that. And maybe it's just my hesitation, but I would hate to see a commission put in a position like that, and then the commission gets in hot water because something's maybe misunderstood, or a contractor comes along and says, no, you don't have to do that, this is how it works. I don't know.
So that's why the commission is responsible for establishing guidelines and falling back on the Department of Interior standards
Yeah.
for rehabilitation. That's where you're going to get your most traction, is
It's
falling back on that.
A little bit of a slippery slope on that one, I
This
guess.
is one of the responsibilities of the commission established by the city's ordinance.
Is
So
there,
definitely put some time into that. Sorry.
So,
Lisa,
yeah.
is there any way that, that someone can recommend to us things that we really need to be looking at? You know, like for instance, the CLG.
Mhm.
Is there something specific that we all should say, we're going to commit to look at this so that we're all on the same page?
I would recommend looking at the Department of Interior's
Okay.
standards for rehabilitation.
It's
It's pretty thorough.
Yeah, it's pretty thorough, and
Okay.
it even goes through and talks about do's and don'ts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
It's real specific with stuff. That's something I could kind of go through next meeting with everybody, and maybe we can kind of go from there. Some of a lot of the stuff on there I could explain a little more than what's explained on the actual standard.
And again, look at the CLG portal training, because I think they have something in regards to that. And definitely on, they've done workshops on looking at applications of appropriateness for, and they go through and do case studies. So I suggest if next time I do one, I'll let you know for either designation or for appropriateness.
Okay.
So if we approve this application now,
Mm-hmm.
is it going to go into effect immediately? Is it something we could?
It probably won't go into effect immediately because we're still working on the database for updating the database and flagging properties. But once we approve it, we'll start working it in, getting it on the city's website, the museum's website, and start educating the public about this.
Related to implementing this, is there a typical review schedule that the city has with people proposing to do work on a building? Do you have a coordinated review process at this point?
Yeah, there is. It's typically with the building official, building department. If there's a planning issue, then there'd be a pre-application process with planning and building.
So then someone proposing work would get all of the recommendations or requirements in a coordinated fashion pretty much at the same time, so it's not stretched out?
For the most part, yeah. They would sit down with the building official, who then would give them information about fire. We've had meetings with the building official, the fire district, planning commission, or planner, with developers and with builders and with homeowner or building owners, just to go through that process. So there is a set process, as long as they're applying for a permit. If
So-
they're doing
so-
something where they don't apply for a permit, it gets done without us knowing about it, then, you know.
So then I guess the question would be, how does this fit into that process? Or how could we ensure that the timing of it doesn't, hold them up in terms of the work they have planned?
That's going to be coordination with
Yeah,
the
we're going to have to
building official.
coordinate with the building department. Once we get this application, and then making sure we can coordinate with them in terms of getting a building permit and all that.
Should we note something on the application in terms of coordination so that the timing, and if they have a pre-conference or pre-decision review conference or something, there could be some level of coordination so they're not doing this independently of all the other city review that's going on?
We can. I don't know where we'd put that.
I would recommend somehow in here, but also in the actual building officials' documents. She's got documents that she gives owners that goes through the time frame and the steps required. If a property is flagged as historic or contributing, then that needs to be considered probably on that side, more so than on this side. So, yeah, I think it's a good suggestion on your part, but, yeah. But it wouldn't hurt to have it on this application, I wouldn't think either.
I guess it could be a note on the official use there below the line, data application received, and then I assume that there's some kind of a regular schedule for some of these review opportunities, or is that pretty much?
It's project by project.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a regular thing. The building official could have 5 projects in 1 week and nothing for a few, you know,
Yeah.
so there's nothing regular.
So as long as they're aware of it at the very beginning.
Right.
That if their property's flagged for what we're talking about, then they
Yeah.
can have that information at the same time they're getting their trusses built. If they're doing a roof or whatever, they
Yeah.
can get that along with engineering, all of those steps that are needed before you apply for a permit. And that would probably save the most time, is just as long as they're aware of it, that if you're gonna do some historic preservation, then
Yeah.
you need to apply for this at the same time, and, you know, don't wait till the last minute, or that's on you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. If it can be part of the regular process, the regular building official process, building
Yeah.
department process, then that way they won't issue a certificate of occupancy, they won't issue a permit necessarily without all of the steps being taken care of, and this is one of those steps.
Do they have a database at the building department as to what structures fall within that?
That's what they're working on,
Okay.
Yeah.
trying to update.
Probably adding a field, most likely, too. Yeah.
Yep.
I think under a attachment checklist, required submittals, that could be where we could add something that follows along the lines of what you would have to provide if you were applying for, say, a state historic grant. And one of the things that they always ask is to reference what you're doing in relation to the Secretary of the Interior standards. And somehow include that, if that's gonna be the basis for how we judge what they're doing, if it's appropriate or not.
And if they're not applying for that, we take a different approach. If they're just wanting to renovate something without keeping an historic designation, but
There is so part of this, after the certificate of appropriateness application, the other thing that the commission is a part of in determining, it would be a certificate of exemption. Almost like they cannot comply with what the commission had deemed
Recommended.
as appropriate. It's mainly almost an appeals type process. They can comply with the appropriateness or all the materials that they want to use, or along those lines based on economic hardship would be a possibility. That was something that we would have the commission review at a later date, that application.
so do we want to make some modifications to this, Mike, and then?
So, yeah, did you want to make a suggestion regarding what, was it the references, what Department of Interior standards would
Yeah, a
be
little more
appropriate.
detail on
or-
what's required under attachment checklist.
Okay,
I can put together some stuff for that.
okay.
Um,
I
would
suspect the
think-
attachment checklist is where we could also place the coordination with other municipal review note. Does the building official assign a number or a designation to the review when it's submitted? Is there a way of tracking that?
That's a good question. I'm not certain.
I don't know.
I know there's a way of tracking jobs that have been completed yeah, I think they're issued a, not certain, but I think they're issued a project number in our
Building permit number.
permit number in the system.
So, yeah, we could, ask what the number is or how this is coordinated that way. I think what we want to avoid is just being dangling out there,
Where they can't move forward.
yeah.
That's
where
my
we're
main
impeding their
concern, too, is that
progress.
they'll bypass us completely if
Yeah.
it becomes too onerous.
Good point, Jim. I'm sure there's many contractors that are very upset that we're gonna be putting some more layers on their jobs.
Well, yeah, and to the extent that we coordinate it or get it to interface with the regular municipal review process, it can be managed without taking more time.
I think that should be an objective of ours, is certainly trying to be considerate of being timely in the whole
Yeah.
manner and not making it that extra layer of
I agree.
bureaucracy, but on the same token, still encourage.
We want to be encouraging and
Yeah, and that's
helpful and-
tough, but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you gotta have some rules, but on the same token, we don't wanna draw the process out to where they bypass us completely and throw up a piece of plywood and leave, or throw up a piece of plywood and then do something, then take the plywood down and it's all done, which happens.
Yeah.
So, I think if we can keep in the loop and encourage proper improvements, then without causing too much headache, we'll be better served in our capacity as a commission.
So moving forward, we'll add a few things to this certificate and review it again at our next meeting.
Yep. Yeah, send me any suggestions you might have. Let me know. And, yeah, we can review it again at the next regular meeting.
I think related to looking at that, are there other trends that we're seeing in terms of requests for alteration, like installing rooftop solar, that we ought to be factoring into some kind of a review process?
Yeah, you might want to, look into that, especially for establishing guidelines. And there are, I think, other communities in Colorado that have been dealing with the same question.
Yeah.
I can reach out to them and see what they have in terms of guidelines for that.
Do rooftop solar units currently require a building permit? Is it like a re-roof or something?
Yeah, we're actually getting several requests for those, yeah. With the new code, it does. Yes.
So we could align our review with, again, the municipal review on that topic or that specific issue.
I would say as long as it's aligned with the municipal review process, then it should capture just about everything.
All right, moving on to public comment and general announcements.
Just to update, I'm still looking for a couple more reports from the people who attended the Saving Places Conference. I need to know which workshops they attended, as well as 3 overall things that they got from attending that conference. The deadline for submitting a report for reimbursement for that scholarship is June 1st. There are a couple upcoming CLG training webinars. There's one tomorrow on preserving 1970s, 1980s architecture. On the June 9th, there's a workshop on identity and intersectionality. And on June 16th, there's a webinar, History with a Side of Preservation, Successful Education and Outreach Strategies. And that's on Wednesday, June 16th. You can register for any of these on the through the CLG portal.
Lisa, can I just clarify, if you miss one of these, though, it's still available to you, is that correct?
Yes.
If you don't sign up and you...
Yeah, the webinar,
Okay.
they record them. The workshop may not be. That's more interactive.
Okay.
But the webinars are recorded and eventually available through the CLG portal.
And related to announcements, do you have any idea what the status is of the State of Colorado Historic Preservation 2030 Preservation Plan?
No, I have not seen anything in regards to that. I will look into that. I do know that the CLG coordinator for the, History Colorado, she got another position somewhere else, or we are, if you're looking for a contact, there are a couple different contacts available until they fill that position. And I can send you that information if you need it.
I was just thinking it would be useful to know where they're at, what their priorities are as we
Yeah.
work on our historic preservation plan. And since the Saving Places Conference, and I think it was Chris Bowles that made the presentation on it, there doesn't seem, I checked their website today and I was having trouble finding if there was anything, if they'd made progress on the draft or anything.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, I will see if I can find it.
Great.
Sometimes hard navigating their website.
Yes.
All right, do we have any other comments or announcements? So we are scheduling a meeting for June 9th. Other than that, our next regular meeting will be June 23rd at 4 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.